So it's really important right now, and the state veterinarian is recommending not to be free-ranging birds at this time.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. Eggs, good and bad, have been atop the headlines lately. We checked a local grocery store and found the cost of a dozen eggs was at $5 a dozen. Now, if that scrambles your budget, perhaps you've wondered if you should take matters into your own hands and start raising chickens. Well, before you cross that road, with the idea that you could end up spending over $1,000 for the same dozen. Despite our producer's penchant for puns, raising animals is something that should probably be left to the experts, and raising chickens is no exception. But if jokes aren't going to make you chicken out, we've brought a couple of experts to talk about raising chicks right. Joining us is Martha Manning, the longtime leader of the 4-H Embryology Program. Martha is affectionately known as the Chicken Lady, and true to her name, she has brought along a coworker. Martha, introduce us to your friend.
Good morning. Yes, I have brought along Omelette. Omelette is a salmon Faverel pullet, and that means that she is under 1 year of age, but she is laying eggs.
All right, she's got a lot to say, too.
She does.
And last time you were on, you had Henrietta, and tell myself in the audience that Henrietta is sleeping at home safely.
Henrietta is safe in the coop, but Omelette wanted her day in the spotlight.
All right, well, we're happy to share. And so if somebody's interested in starting a chicken coop of their own, what's the first thing they should keep in mind?
So as the price of eggs increases, more and more people are saying, oh, I could just get a backyard flock. But what I would do is encourage people to get out a piece of paper and a pencil, do some serious research and planning before they jump into buying chickens. And what I would recommend is that first off, you check with your local town clerk to see if there are ordinances in your area that regulate having backyard poultry. Some towns limit the number of birds that you can have, and some towns also say no roosters. So the best place to start off, right off the bat, is to check with the town clerk. Then you might want to ask yourself, do you currently have a coop or a barn that would provide shelter and adequate space per bird, as well as protection from predators? So if you're going to purchase a coop, look around, check prices, and do your homework.
And is cost a big factor?
Cost can be a big factor. If you're having to start with nothing and you need a coop and feeders and waterers and fencing, the cost can add up really quickly.
Sure.
So,
and we hear about free range all the time, so if you're raising your own flock, is that the way to go?
Free range means exactly what it says. It means that the birds are free to go wherever they want, and it might be digging up your flowers or your vegetable garden or your neighbors. So right now with avian influenza, free range is highly discouraged by the state veterinarian. So in that case, you would want to run that is fenced, preferably with a roof or a cover, to limit the access of wild birds into where your poultry is housed.
Okay, we're going to dive into some avian flu stuff in a second, but first I want to ask, you've got the coop, you're emotionally ready to have chickens. What kind of species should you look for?
So first off, do you want to start with mature birds, or do you want to go and purchase chicks? Now, if you're going to purchase chicks from a local feed store or online, you need to know some basic terms. Now, if you buy what's called straight run, that is as they have hatched. So it's a mixtures of males and females. If you buy sexed chicks, so that's about 90% accurate, it's not 100%, then you've got to still have a plan. What are you going to do if you get a rooster? And there are some people who will take roosters. Sometimes you can find a neighbor or another farm. But if you're in that town that limits no roosters, you definitely would want to buy sexed. If you're buying chicks, they've got to have a heat source. they've got to have, you know, a little more protection than the mature birds that you can just put inside your coop.
Has there been a shortage of chickens with the kind of run on egg alternatives?
Right now I'm seeing that a lot of the hatcheries, if you're going to purchase direct from a hatchery, are selling out of certain breeds well into the summer months. So, you know, if you're thinking of ordering from a hatchery, the sooner you can at least get them ordered, the better off you'll be and the better selection you'll have.
All right, and when Omelet's not resting, Omelet is a laying bird already, so how long do you have to wait from chick to when you can get some eggs?
So certain breeds, like the Leghorns, will lay as early as 16 or 17 weeks.
Wow.
Now during that time, you're still feeding them and putting money into them. Birds like Omelet may not start laying until they're 24, 25 weeks, till they're more mature. So it depends on the breed. And like I said at the beginning, if you do your homework, you can find all that information, as well as how many eggs will a certain breed lay.
So how many can you expect a week, or is it the same thing? It just depends?
It depends on the breed. If you were to have like white Leghorns, they're a little bit of a crazy kind of bird, but they are awesome layers for the amount of feed that you're going to put into that bird. So from a Leghorn, you might get 6 or 7 eggs per week, and they're large to an extra large egg. Chicken like Omelet here, she might only lay 4 eggs a week. So, and really you need to ask yourself when you're going to think about getting these chickens, do you want them because you want eggs for your family, or do you want a few pretty birds running around the backyard? Usually the pretty birds aren't the best layers. They lay less, so you'll have eggs and pretty birds, or you can get some that are really going to provide eggs.
Sure, and you actually earlier mentioned a bird that you said was kind of crazy, so is behavior something that you can choose too?
You can also look for behavioral traits. So the Leghorns are great layers, but they're a little flighty. I know my own Leghorns, if I don't get them cooped up in the summer early enough, they'll be in the treetops, and then you won't get them in the coop at night. So then they're kind of out there for the owls to peck off.
So just have something else to keep in mind when you're shopping.
Something to keep in mind.
All right, and you actually brought in some eggs here, and these don't look like the ones you get at your everyday Shaw's.
No, so you know, you can also select breeds for egg color, and some people really like to have a dozen eggs like those where you've got a variety of color.
They are beautiful.
And so they're each laid by a different breed of chicken. So you can look for egg color as well. And some people really like a variety, especially if they're maybe selling eggs in a farm stand. So there's lots of traits that you can look for.
All right, and you already mentioned this a little bit, but let's circle back to the conversation about avian flu. Is that something you're worried about in your flocks?
I think everyone should be aware of avian flu. Know what to look for. Right now, my birds are cooped. I'm not letting them outside. If you live near a waterway or a pond or some type of a lake even, especially once the waterfowl starts migrating, it's really important that you not let your birds mingle where the waterfowl are, or where waterfowl are going to come into the area where your flock is, and maybe you throw corn down or something. So it's really important right now, and the state veterinarian is recommending not to be free-ranging birds at this time.
And if Vermont does have a bird flu outbreak, are egg prices expected to go higher? Is that something we can foresee?
So avian influenza is one thing that drives the price of eggs. It's not the only thing, but if there were to be an outbreak of avian influenza, and a lot of the eggs we buy here are brought in, it potentially could drive the price of eggs higher.
Okay, and how about the price of chicken?
We're not really seeing a huge change in the price of meat. We're not seeing, meat is not affected by avian influenza, except that it can wipe huge flocks out of the market. That may change the price, but you know, people worry about, well, if I eat chicken, am I going to get avian influenza? And the answer to that is pretty much no. Cook your chicken.
Good rule of thumb as always.
As always, use a thermometer, check the temperature. But the chances are that there is no avian influenza in any of that meat.
Sure. And
so the meat supply is safe.
Well, that's a relief for me. But as you kind of mentioned earlier, avian flu, even if it wasn't a problem, you should still be careful when you're going to the coop and wash your hands after. So are there other things you
Biosecurity, limit who is coming in and out of your coops, because you don't always know where they have been and what they have potentially walked through or been exposed to. So, don't have visitors into your coops. Be aware of where your birds are, and determine what level of risk are you willing to assume for your own operation. For myself, it means I keep the birds in right now, and the birds will definitely be in through the migratory season, and then we'll have to assess what the status of bird flu is at that time and determine whether they can be out. I don't as much free range, but I do have portable fencing that I use, but it is open on the top. So you have to look at what the risk is in each situation.
Sure. And you've been leading 4-H embryology for years. Is this something that you've been kind of adapting to and changing? Is it impacting the embryology program?
The embryology program, we did have an issue this year with sourcing fertile eggs. It wasn't really due to avian influenza, but another issue at the poultry house. We have found a source of fertile eggs in Vermont, and so embryology will go on as usual.
Well, that's great.
It's great. It's good.
And do you have any concerns about humans handling birds or hatching chicks with everything going on?
So everyone should wash their hands, preferably before you handle the birds and chicks and after you've handled them. And it's not really avian influenza, but there's other things like salmonella that, just take the extra step, wash your hands, especially with little children, because, they rub their face, they go and get a cookie. So just wash your hands and, be aware that there are other things out there besides avian influenza, things like salmonella that can easily be prevented.
Sure, a good rule of thumb.
Well,
thank you, Aunt Omelet, for joining us today.
So my question, Jolie, is why did the chicken not cross the road?
Well, given the current climate, I have to say I was worried about getting sick.
Because it could not get across the fence.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming in. And if you would like to get in touch with the bird lady, maybe she'll tell you her own joke, you can call the UVM extension phone number on your screen. And that's enough egging on for one day. I want to thank the good eggs behind the scenes here at WCAX. I'm Jolie Whitney. This is Across the Fence. Have a good one.